Consider Adam and Eve. What happens in the Garden of Eden? They are given one rule. 1. Do not eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And what do? They eat. They disobey. And what happens immediately after they eat? Their eyes are opened. They become conscious of their own vulnerability. They realize they are naked. They realize they will die. They feel shame for the first time. They hide. They blame each other. They blame the serpent. They blame God. That is the dawn of consciousness. And it is not a gentle dawn. It is a violent, terrifying awakening. Because to become conscious is to realize that you are finite, that you will suffer, that you will make mistakes, that you will hurt people you love, that you will die. No wonder we try to hide from it. No wonder we prefer the unconscious comfort of the garden. No wonder we invent ideologies and addictions and distractions to numb the awareness of our own fragility. That is the fall. And we are all still falling, every day, every moment, every time we choose blindness over sight. Now, look at Christ on the cross. This is the inversion of the fall. This is consciousness taken to its absolute limit. He knows exactly what is happening. He knows he is being betrayed by a friend. He knows he is being abandoned by his other friends, who are hiding in fear. He knows he is being falsely accused by religious authorities. He knows he is being tortured by the Roman Empire. He knows he is being murdered unjustly. His consciousness is completely, agonizingly clear. There is no denial. There is no distraction. There is no numbness. And what does he do with that consciousness? What does he say? He says, "Father, forgive them. They know not what they do." He could have been resentful. He could have cursed his enemies. He could have descended into bitterness, which is the default mode of the unexamined life. He could have become a victim professional, resentful, demanding revenge. The world would have understood, but he doesn't. He says, "Father, forgive them. They know not what they do." Why is that the pinnacle of the story? Why has that moment echoed across millennia? Because it is the ultimate example of taking responsibility for consciousness itself. It is the refusal to let suffering corrupt your soul. It is the decision to meet the worst that reality can throw at you with an open heart rather than a closed fist. Jesus is showing you personally, sitting there in your car or your kitchen or your gym, that no matter how much chaos surrounds you, no matter how unjust the world is, no matter how badly you have been betrayed, you have a choice. You can curse the darkness. You can become bitter. You can retreat into resentment and let it eat you alive. Or you can become the Logos. You can speak truth. You can forgive. You can act in a way that makes the suffering meaningful rather than meaningless. That is consciousness. That is the kingdom. That is heaven. Look, people come to me all the time. They say, "Are you trying to destroy religion?" I get that question constantly, from believers, from skeptics, from people who are angry at the church but still feel this strange pull toward the sacred. And my answer is always the same. No, I am not trying to destroy religion. I am trying to save what is actually real about it. And here's the thing that will make you angry, but you need to hear it. Jesus wasn't primarily interested in building a religion. He was interested in consciousness. Let me walk you through this carefully, because the implications are staggering. And if I'm even partially right, then most of what you've been taught about Christianity, about church attendance, most of that misses the point almost entirely. It's like staring at the menu while starving to death. The menu is useful. It tells you what's available, but it is not the meal. And Jesus was the meal. Let's start at the real beginning. Go to the Gospel of John, the very first line. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. Now, that word in Greek is logos. And what has the institutional church done with this magnificent, terrifying concept? They turned it into a doctrine, a statement of belief. That is not what that means. That is a catastrophic reduction of something that should shake you to your core. The logos is the process by which consciousness transforms the chaos of being into habitable order. Think about that for a moment. You wake up in the morning. What do you have? You have a body. You have memories. You have 1,000 competing impulses. And out of that raw, buzzing confusion, you have to decide what to pay attention to. You have to decide what is true and what is false. That act of decision, that act of ordering chaos through attention and speech, that is the logos. That is the divine spark. That is what separates you from a rock or a tree or, frankly, from someone who has given up on being a full human being. It is the act of paying attention. It is the decision to speak truth instead of a lie. It is the refusal to collapse into nihilism when everything around you is falling apart. When you are confronted with suffering, and you will be inevitably, your conscious decision to orient yourself toward the good, your decision to say, despite the chaos, despite the pain, despite my own weakness, I will act in a way that makes things better, not worse. That is the logos in action. And Christ, in the Gospel of John, is that logos. That is the most radical claim in human history. It is saying that the highest possible form of human consciousness, the most truthful, the most courageous, the most loving form of awareness, is not an abstract ideal. It walked on earth. It ate food. It wept at funerals. It got angry at corrupt merchants. It was betrayed. It was tortured. And it refused to become resentful. Meaning, the highest possible form of human consciousness is to speak truth courageously in the face of suffering. That's not religion in the dogmatic sense. That's a technology of awareness. That's a practical, empirical, existential roadmap for how to live in a world that will break your heart if you let it. Jesus didn't come to start a club. He came to show you that if you don't wake up, if you don't use your consciousness to confront evil, to confront your own shadows, to confront the suffering of others, you will remain in a state of naive, childish, unconscious slavery. You will be pushed around by your impulses. You will be manipulated by ideologies. You will become a victim of your own unexamined life. And that, according to Christ, is the only real hell. Now, let's get into the part that religious people hate. The Pharisees. These were the religious guys. These were the professionals. They knew the rules better than anyone. They had memorized the Torah. By any external measure, they were the holiest people in the room. And what did Christ call them? A brood of vipers. Whitewashed tombs, beautiful on the outside, full of dead bones on the inside. Blind guides. Hypocrites. Why such harsh language? I mean, this is the Prince of Peace, right? Shouldn't he be gentle? Shouldn't he be inclusive? Why the rage? Because they performed the actions of religion, but their consciousness was dead. They were asleep at the wheel of their own souls. They could recite the law, but they couldn't see the suffering person standing right in front of them. They could follow the Sabbath rules, but they couldn't heal a man's crippled hand without checking their legal checklist first. Their consciousness was so cluttered with ritual, with status, with reputation, with fear of breaking the wrong rule, that there was no room left for actual awareness, actual love, actual truth. And here's the terrifying thing. That can happen to anyone. It can happen to you. It can happen to me. You can become so focused on the form of goodness that you lose the substance. You can say the right prayers, attend the right services, use the right language, and be completely, utterly dead inside. That is what Jesus was fighting against. That is what got him killed. Religious hypocrisy. The people who thought they had God in a box. Here's the radical claim. Jesus equated consciousness with the divine. He said, "The kingdom of God is within you, or among you, or in your midst." And this is one of the most mistranslated and misunderstood statements in all of Scripture. The Greek is ambiguous, but the dominant interpretation for most of church history is the kingdom is coming later. The kingdom is in heaven. And Jesus is standing there saying, "No, you've missed it. It's inside your own conscious experience. It's right here, right now, if you have eyes to see. It's within you, within your capacity to pay attention, within your capacity to love, within your capacity to tell the truth. That is where the kingdom is. And if you're looking for it anywhere else, you're looking in the wrong place." You see, morality isn't about checking boxes on a Sabbath checklist. Morality is about seeing reality clearly. And seeing reality clearly is the hardest thing a human being can do, because reality is painful. Reality confronts you with your own shortcomings. It's much easier to hide in abstract rules. It's much easier to say, "I followed the procedure, so I'm good." That's the Pharisaical temptation. When you look at a person in need, your consciousness confronts you. Act or don't act. Help or walk away. Speak or remain silent. That moment of recognition, that internal dialogue between your better self and your selfish self, that split second where you feel the pull of compassion and the pull of convenience, that is the voice of the Logos. That is the divine speaking to you through your own consciousness. And what you do in that moment determines the shape of your soul. Jesus argued that if you do not cultivate that inner awareness, if you let your consciousness become clouded by resentment, by ideology, by rote repetition, by the numbing fog of entertainment and distraction, you are choosing blindness. You are choosing to amputate the very faculty that connects you to God. And a blind person cannot navigate the chaos of life. They will stumble, they will fall, they will lead others into the ditch with them. Now let me tell you something that will make some of you very uncomfortable. I am not saying that religious structures are worthless. That would be stupid. They preserve wisdom across generations. They remind you to pray when you would otherwise forget. That is valuable. That is necessary. But a container is not the contents. A cup is not the wine. And if you worship the cup, if you spend all your time polishing the cup and arguing about the correct shape of the cup, you will die of thirst while holding a beautiful object. Here is where it gets truly terrifying and uplifting at the same time. In my biblical series, and I've spent dozens of hours on this, much to the confusion of my academic colleagues, I strip away the dogma, not to destroy Christ, heaven forbid, but to see why the story has survived for 2,000 years, why it has spread across every continent, every culture, every language, why it has inspired art, music, hospitals, universities, abolition movements, civil rights struggles. There is something in that story that is true at a level deeper than historical fact. It is psychologically true. It is existentially true. It is true about the structure of consciousness itself.